The photograph. The city buzzed with life outside the sleek glass walls of Alexander Stone's corporate office. From the 47th floor, he watched the ebb and flow of cars below, each one carrying its own story. Yet, amidst the hum of success, Alex felt a hollowness he couldn't shake. The world hailed him as a billionaire tech genius, a self-made mogul who had turned a humble startup into an empire. But the man himself was haunted by an emptiness no amount of accolades could fill. A sharp knock interrupted his thoughts. His assistant, Claire, stepped in, holding a leather-bound portfolio. "Your meeting with the investors is in 30 minutes, she said, placing the folder on his desk. "Anything else I can prepare for you?" Alex waved her off with a distracted nod. As she left, he leaned back in his chair, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing the edges of his wallet. A habit, a lifeline to memories he rarely dared to revisit. Opening it, he retrieved a faded photograph. Two smiling children stood arm in arm in front of an old red-brick orphanage. They looked so happy, as if the world hadn't yet shown them its harshness. Alex sighed, his thumb brushing over the worn edges. The photo was decades old, yet the faces of the children, a boy and a girl, were etched in his mind as vividly as the day he'd first seen them. The boy looked strikingly like Alex at that age. It was uncanny, almost eerie. But it wasn't his childhood. He didn't have a sister. He had grown up in wealth and privilege, or so he'd been told. The photograph had appeared in his wallet a month ago, left anonymously during a gala. He had no idea who had placed it there, or why. A sharp jingle brought him back to the present. His phone buzzed with an alert. An email from an unknown sender. The subject line reading, "Is this what you're looking for?" Attached was a scanned image of the same photograph, but this one had something extra. An inscription on the back. Alex's heart raced as he opened it. The message, written in neat cursive, read, "Find them before it's too late." Setting the stage for mystery. That evening, Alex dismissed his chauffeur and drove himself. The city lights blurred as his mind churned with questions. Who were these children? Why did he feel an inexplicable connection to them? And what did the inscription mean? Unable to ignore the gnawing curiosity, Alex returned home to his penthouse, a space filled with cold modernity but no warmth. He poured himself a drink and stared at the photograph. The girl's eyes were familiar in a way that unsettled him. He searched his memory for any fragment of recognition, but found nothing. The next morning, Claire found him in the office library, surrounded by stacks of records, legal documents, and family photos. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Cancel my meetings," he said without looking up. Claire hesitated. "Is everything all right, Mr. Stone?" "Not yet," he muttered, flipping through another stack of papers. He slammed it shut, frustration etched on his face. "But it will be." A chance encounter. Later that week, Alex decided to step away from the suffocating weight of his search. He visited a quiet cafe on the outskirts of the city, a place he used to frequent before his rise to fame. The scent of fresh bread and coffee was a nostalgic balm to his nerves. As he sat by the window, stirring his espresso, two children caught his eye. A boy and a girl, perhaps 13 or 14, rifled through a nearby trash bin. Their clothes were threadbare, their faces gaunt but alert. Alex watched as they worked in unison, their movements synchronized like a dance born of necessity. There was something in the way they moved, something eerily familiar. His pulse quickened as he stood, leaving his coffee behind. He approached them cautiously, not wanting to startle them. "Hey," he said gently. The boy straightened, stepping protectively in front of the girl. His sharp eyes scanned Alex's tailored suit, his polished shoes, his whole being. "We're not doing anything wrong," the boy said, his voice firm despite his small stature. "I know," Alex replied, holding his hands up. He knelt to their level, his gaze softening. Do you need help?" The girl clutched the boy's arm, her gaze darting between Alex and the alley behind them. She was ready to run, to vanish into the shadows. But the boy didn't move. He studied Alex, his face unreadable. Then, with a voice trembling between fear and defiance, he asked, "Why do you have a picture of us?" The confrontation. The boy's words hit Alex like a blow. "Hide what?" Alex stammered, thrown completely off balance. His hand instinctively went to his wallet, but he stopped short. How could these children possibly know about the photo? The girl tugged at the boy's sleeve, her expression an uneasy mix of fear and urgency. "Let's go, Ben," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the street. But the boy, Ben, didn't move. His sharp eyes stayed locked on Alex, suspicion burning in them. "Why do you have it?" he repeated, his tone harder now. "Who sent you?" Alex straightened, his mind racing. His business acumen, his calculated calm in boardrooms, all deserted him. "I wasn't sent by anyone. I don't even know who you are," he managed. "I found this picture, or rather, it was left for me. I've been trying to figure out what it means." The girl, still clutching Ben's sleeve, took a cautious step back. "We don't believe you." "I swear, I don't mean any harm," Alex said quickly. He pulled his wallet out, fumbling with it before extracting the photograph. "Here. Look." Ben snatched the picture from his hand with startling speed, holding it up for the girl to see. Her breath caught audibly, and her fingers tightened on her brother's arm. "It's us," she murmured, her voice trembling. "How does he have this?" "Ask him," Ben growled, his eyes narrowing as he glared at Alex. "Why are you following us? Are you with them?" "Them?" Alex asked, confusion evident in his voice. "I don't know who them is. I just—" "You're lying," Ben snapped, his voice rising. A few passers-by glanced their way, curiosity flickering in their expressions. Ben lowered his voice, his tone still sharp. "Nobody just finds a picture like this. Who sent you? What do you want?" Alex raised his hands, palms outward, trying to calm the boy. "I swear to you, I'm not lying. I don't know who left the photo in my wallet, and I have no idea what it means. I've been trying to find answers, just like you." The girl tugged at Ben again, her eyes darting nervously. "We shouldn't talk here," she whispered. "What if he's telling the truth?" "But what if—" "Fine," Ben interrupted, cutting her off. He glared at Alex. "You want answers. So do we. But if you try anything—" Alex nodded, his heart pounding. "I understand. Let's go somewhere safe to talk." An uneasy truce. The three of them ended up in a small park, a few blocks away. It was quieter there, the soft rustling of leaves and distant sound of traffic providing a semblance of privacy. Ben and the girl sat on a bench, still wary, while Alex stood a few feet away, trying to appear as non-threatening as possible. "My name's Alex," he began, keeping his voice low and even. "Alexander Stone. I'm—" "We know who you are," Ben cut in, his tone cold. "You're all over the news. Billionaire tech guide, right? What's someone like you doing chasing after kids like us?" Alex hesitated. How could he explain something he barely understood himself? "I'm not chasing you," he said carefully. "The truth is, I've been trying to figure out why I have that picture. And now that I've seen you, I need to know. Who are you?" The girl exchanged a glance with Ben, who seemed to be silently weighing his options. Finally, the boy sighed. "I'm Ben, and this is my sister, Leela. Where? Nobody. Just trying to get by." "Ben," Leela said softly, her tone cautionary. But Ben ignored her. "We've been on our own for a long time," he continued, his eyes daring Alex to question him. "And we don't trust people. Especially not guys in suits." Alex nodded, trying to hide his unease. "I understand. But I need you to believe me when I say I'm not your enemy. I just want to know why your picture is in my wallet." Ben's jaw tightened. "Maybe you should ask the people who gave it to you." "I don't know who that is," Alex said. He hesitated before asking the question that had been burning in his mind. How long have you been on your own? Leela's gaze dropped to the ground, but Ben's hardened. Long enough, he said tersely. Why do you care? Because, Alex paused, unsure how to phrase it. Because I think there's a connection between us. I don't know what it is yet, but there is no connection, Ben snapped. We're not your problem. Leela shifted uncomfortably. Ben, maybe he's right. What if he's not? Ben interrupted. He stood abruptly, pulling Leela up with him. Come on, we're leaving. Wait, Alex said, desperation creeping into his voice. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. If you change your mind or if you need anything, please call me. I'm serious. Anything at all. Ben snatched the card but didn't look at it. We won't. With that, he and Leela walked away, disappearing into the crowd as quickly as they had appeared. Alex stood there, the photograph still vivid in his mind, and a sinking feeling in his chest. Whoever those kids were, they were connected to him in ways he couldn't yet comprehend, and he wasn't about to let the mystery go unsolved. The revelation. The next few days felt like an eternity to Alex. The encounter with Ben and Leela had stirred something deep within him, a mix of unease, curiosity, and a growing sense of responsibility. Their eyes, their faces, their very presence lingered in his mind like a song he couldn't shake. At his penthouse, Alex sat in his study, the photograph placed squarely on the desk before him. He had tried to focus on work, but quarterly projections and board reports seemed insignificant now. The inscription on the photograph's back, "Find them before it's too late," played on repeat in his head. He needed answers. Tracing the photo's origins, Claire entered the room with her usual efficiency, a tablet in one hand and a file folder in the other. You asked me to look into anything related to this photograph, she said, setting the folder on the desk. Alex nodded, gesturing for her to continue. I couldn't find much directly tied to the photograph itself, Claire admitted, but I traced the time you first noticed it. At the gala a month ago. Security footage shows someone slipping something into your coat pocket in the cloakroom. Alex sat up straighter. Who? Claire tapped on the tablet, turning it to face him. The grainy footage showed a figure in a hoodie entering the cloakroom. Their face was obscured, but they moved quickly, sliding something into Alex's coat before leaving. No ID, Claire said. They were careful. No prints, no camera angles that caught their face. Alex frowned, his mind racing. And the gala guest list. Any names that stood out? Claire shook her head. Nothing that would explain this. But there's something else. She flipped open the folder. I dug into old public records, and I found a name that might be connected to those kids. Layla and Ben. They might be linked to a family named Porter. Alex leaned forward. Go on. The Porters owned a small shop in a lower-income area of the city. They disappeared about 8 years ago under mysterious circumstances. Their 2 children were never found. The case went cold. Alex's heart sank. And you think those kids err? It's possible, Claire said. The timeline matches their ages, and the descriptions of the children fit Ben and Leela. Alex's mind raced. 8 years ago, he'd been at the height of his career, consumed by expansion and global ventures. He hadn't noticed much outside his bubble. But now, the implications gnawed at him. What had happened to the Porters, and how were these kids connected to him? A familiar face. That evening, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the past was closing in on him. He decided to visit the neighborhood where the Porter's shop had once stood. Driving himself, he navigated through streets that grew rougher and less maintained the deeper he went. Finally, he pulled up in front of a boarded-up storefront, its faded sign barely legible in the dim streetlights. He stepped out of the car, his expensive shoes crunching on broken glass. The air was thick with the smell of damp concrete and something metallic. As he approached the door, An old man sitting on the stoop of a nearby building called out, "Looking for something?" The man rasped, his voice roughened by years of smoking. Alex turned, offering a polite nod. "Just curious about this place. Did you know the people who used to run it?" The man squinted, his weathered face crinkling in thought. "The Porters?" "Yeah, I knew 'em. Good people. Always helped out the neighborhood kids." "What happened to them?" Alex asked. The man shrugged, his expression darkening. "One day they were just gone. Police said there was no sign of a struggle, but we all knew better. They were in some kind of trouble, though. Kept getting visits from men in suits right before they vanished." Men in suits. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "And their kids?" The old man shook his head. "Never saw 'em again. Heard rumors, though. Some say they ran off. Others say they didn't make it." Alex thanked the man and returned to his car, his thoughts heavier than ever. If Ben and Leela were the Porter kids, what kind of danger had they escaped from? And why had the photograph been sent to him? The connection deepens. Back at his penthouse, Alex was startled by a sharp knock on his door. It was nearly midnight. He approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. To his shock, Ben and Leela stood there, looking nervous but determined. He opened the door, his heart racing. "What are you doing here? Are you okay?" Ben pushed past him into the penthouse, Leila following hesitantly. "We don't have anywhere else to go," Ben said bluntly. "We've been followed." "Followed?" Alex asked, alarmed. "By who?" Ben's jaw tightened. "We don't know. Some guys in a black SUV. They've been tailing us for days. We thought we lost them, but they showed up again tonight." Alex gestured for them to sit. "You're safe here," he said firmly. "No one's getting to you. Why are you helping us?" Leela asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex hesitated. "Because I think we're connected. And I want to know how." Ben exchanged a wary glance with Leela, then reached into his pocket. He pulled out a crumpled envelope and handed it to Alex. "This was in our mom's stuff when we left," he said. "We didn't understand it back then, but maybe you will." Alex opened the envelope, his hands trembling. Inside was a letter addressed to someone named Andrew Stone, his father. The handwriting was desperate, the ink smudged in places as if from tears. The letter: "Mr. Stone, you don't know me, but I know you. I've worked for your company for 5 years, and I've uncovered things I wasn't supposed to see. I didn't want to believe it at first, but now I'm certain. Your people are behind the disappearance of several families, including my own. Please, I'm begging you, if you have any humanity left, help me protect my children. They're innocent. They don't deserve this. Signed, M. Porter." Alex stared at the letter, his blood running cold. His father's name loomed over him like a specter. What had Andrew Stone been involved in? And how much of his father's legacy had Alex unknowingly inherited? Ben watched him carefully. "Who's Andrew Stone?" Alex swallowed hard, meeting the boy's gaze. "He was my father." The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation pressing down on all of them. Finally, Ben spoke, his voice low and steady. "Then maybe you can help us find out what really happened." Alex nodded, determination hardening his features. "I will. I promise." But deep down, he knew the truth he sought might destroy everything he thought he knew about himself and his family. Shadows of the past. The letter burned a hole in Alex's mind as he sat in his penthouse office that night. The weight of its words, the plea of a desperate parent trying to save their children, was impossible to ignore. Alex had spent his life idolizing his late father, Andrew Stone, a man he believed had built a tech empire on innovation and integrity. But now, a darker narrative was unraveling before him, and it refused to be silenced. Across from him, Ben sat stiffly, his gaze darting around the luxurious office. Leela clutched a mug of hot cocoa, her small hands trembling slightly. Claire hovered nearby, her usually composed demeanor shaken. Claire, Alex said, breaking the silence, I need you to dig deeper. Find out everything about this letter, who M. Porter was, what they knew, and why they believed my father was involved. She hesitated. Alex, if your father. I don't care what the answer is. Alex interrupted, his voice sharp. I need to know the truth. Claire nodded and left the room, leaving Alex alone with the two children who, against all odds, had come to him for help. A shocking clue. The following morning, Alex received a call from Claire. Her voice was tense, laced with urgency. You need to come to the office, she said. I found something, and it's significant. Alex's car sped through the city as his mind raced. Claire rarely used words like significant, and when she did, it usually meant trouble. When he arrived, she ushered him into a private conference room. A file lay open on the table, its contents meticulously organized. This, Claire said, pointing to a document at the center, is a record from one of your father's lesser-known subsidiaries. It was dissolved nearly 8 years ago, the same time the Porters disappeared. Alex leaned forward, scanning the document. It detailed payments made to a private security firm, one notorious for handling delicate matters. One entry stood out, a payment made directly to a Project Horizon, listed as a client of the firm. What was Project Horizon? Alex asked, his voice low. Claire tapped another file. That's where it gets interesting. Project Horizon was registered as a community development initiative, but in reality, it was a cover for relocating families who knew too much. Alex's stomach twisted. Relocating or silencing? Claire hesitated. I can't say for sure, but there's evidence suggesting that your father's company used this program to make certain people disappear, people who posed a threat to the company's reputation. The word disappear hung in the air like a storm cloud. Alex sat back, his mind reeling. Had his father orchestrated the Porters' disappearance? If so, what did it mean for Ben and Leela? And for Alex himself? Unearthing the past. That evening, Alex called a meeting at the penthouse. Ben and Leela sat on the couch, watching him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Claire joined them, her tablet in hand, ready to present her findings. Ben, Leela, Alex began, his voice steady despite the turmoil within him. I've uncovered some information about what happened to your family, but it's not easy to hear. Ben crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. We've heard worse. Alex nodded and gestured to Claire. She displayed a map on her tablet, showing various locations tied to Project Horizon. This program, Claire explained, was created to relocate families who discovered unethical practices within the Stone Corporation. Our parents weren't relocated, Ben snapped. They were killed. Claire glanced at Alex, unsure how to proceed. He stepped in. We don't have all the answers yet, but there's evidence that your parents were targeted because of something they knew, something dangerous. Leela's eyes welled with tears. They were trying to protect us, she whispered. That's why we had to run. Ben placed a protective arm around his sister. So what now? Do we just wait for those men to find us again? No, Alex said firmly. We fight back. We expose everything my father and his associates did, and we make sure you are safe. An unexpected ally. As the group strategized, Alex's phone buzzed with an unknown number. He hesitated before answering. Mr. Stone, a gravelly voice said, I believe we have a mutual interest. Who is this? Alex asked, his tone cautious. Let's just say I used to work for your father, the voice replied. And I know things you'll want to hear, but this conversation is best had in person. The caller gave Alex an address and hung up before he could respond. Who was that? Claire asked. Someone who might know more, Alex said. He turned to Ben and Leela. Stay here with Claire. I'll handle this. The meeting. The address led Alex to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Inside, he found a man in his 60s, his face lined with years of regret. He introduced himself as Marcus Grayson, a former operative for the private security firm tied to Project Horizon. "I was part of the team that carried out the Porter's relocation," Marcus admitted. "But it wasn't supposed to end the way it did." "What happened?" Alex demanded. Marcus hesitated, guilt clouding his features. "Your father's orders were clear. Silence anyone who posed a threat. The Porters were just the latest victims. But when it came time to handle them, I couldn't do it. I tipped them off instead, helped them escape. But I wasn't fast enough. My team caught up to them." Alex's fists clenched. "And the children?" "They got away," Marcus said. "I made sure of it. But their parents, they weren't so lucky." Alex felt a wave of nausea. The confirmation was a gut punch, but it also gave him clarity. He had to ensure the cycle ended with him. A turning point. Back at the penthouse, Alex relayed the conversation to Claire, Ben, and Leela. The twins listened intently, their faces a mix of anger and sadness. "So, they really did die for us," Ben said quietly. "Because of your father." Alex knelt before them, meeting their gaze. "I'm not my father, and I'll spend the rest of my life making up for what he did. I swear to you, I'll protect you, and will expose everyone involved." For the first time, Ben's hardened expression softened. "Then let's finish what they started. Building a case." Over the next few days, Alex, Claire, and the twins worked tirelessly. They compiled evidence, tracked down witnesses, and pieced together a case that could bring Project Horizon's dark legacy to light. Marcus agreed to testify, providing insider details that strengthened their claims. But as they inched closer to the truth, the threats grew more tangible. Anonymous warnings, suspicious vehicles, and cyberattacks plagued their efforts. Alex doubled security around the penthouse, determined to shield Ben and Leela from harm. Despite the mounting danger, their resolve only deepened. For the twins, this was a chance to honor their parents. For Alex, it was a chance to rewrite his family's legacy. Breaking shadows. The tension in the penthouse was palpable as Alex and his team prepared for what felt like the final act in a twisted drama. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimony solid, but Alex knew the real battle hadn't begun yet. His father's shadow loomed large, and the men who had carried out Andrew Stone's dirty work weren't going to let decades of corruption crumble without a fight. A dangerous offer. The morning began with an unexpected delivery. A plain manila envelope left at the security desk. Inside was a letter, handwritten in sharp, deliberate strokes. "Mr. Stone, you've stirred a hornet's nest, but you're playing a game you don't understand. Walk away now, and no harm will come to you or your newfound family. Push forward, and you'll lose everything, just like your father taught you. Consider this your only warning." The letter was unsigned, but Alex didn't need a name. The warning carried the unmistakable fingerprints of Pierce Everett, one of Andrew Stone's former partners and a man known for ruthless efficiency. Claire read the letter over his shoulder, her expression hardening. "This isn't just a warning. It's a promise." Alex tossed the letter onto his desk. "I don't care. If Pierce thinks he can scare me, he's in for a surprise." "He's not bluffing," Claire said. "And if he's involved, things are going to escalate quickly." Ben and Leela entered the room, their faces pale but resolute. They'd overheard enough to know the stakes. Ben crossed his arms. "We're not backing down." "Neither am I," Alex replied, his voice firm. "Pierce is trying to protect his empire, but we're going to tear it down, piece by piece. A trail of secrets." Over the next few days, Claire coordinated with Marcus Grayson and other former employees willing to testify. The case was shaping into a damning expose of the Stone Corporation's darkest chapters. But as they gathered evidence, Pierce's tactics grew bolder. Their systems were hacked twice, forcing Claire to reroute all communications through secure channels. An SUV followed Ben and Leela on their way home from a safe house, prompting Alex to triple their security detail. Every move they made was shadowed by unseen eyes, and the tension in the penthouse grew heavier with each passing hour. "We need to strike first," Alex said during a late-night meeting with Claire and Marcus. "We can't just wait for Pierce to make his next move." Marcus nodded. "There's a key player we haven't touched yet, Evelyn Brooks. She managed the financial side of Project Horizon. If anyone knows where the bodies are buried, it's her." "She won't talk," Claire said. "She's been loyal to Pierce for years." "She'll talk," Alex replied, his jaw tightening. "We just have to give her the right incentive." Confronting Evelyn. The next morning, Alex and Marcus arrived at a private club where Evelyn Brooks was known to spend her mornings. The opulence of the place was staggering, but Alex had grown numb to luxury. His focus was on the woman seated by the window, sipping tea as though she hadn't orchestrated the ruin of countless lives. "Ms. Brooks," Alex said, approaching her table. Evelyn glanced up, her carefully composed expression betraying no surprise. "Mr. Stone, I was wondering when you'd show up." "Then you know why I'm here." She gestured to the empty chair across from her. "I assume this is about your father's unfortunate legacy. Please, sit." Alex remained standing. "I don't have time for games. I need the files on Project Horizon." Evelyn chuckled, a sound as cold as her demeanor. "You think I'd betray Pierce just because you asked nicely? You're more naive than I thought. I have enough evidence to bury you," Alex said, his voice low and sharp. "But I'm giving you a chance to save yourself. Cooperate, and I'll make sure you're not dragged down with the rest of them." Evelyn's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but she recovered quickly. "You're playing a dangerous game, Mr. Stone." "So are you," Alex countered. "And Pierce doesn't share power. You think he'll protect you when this all comes crashing down?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed. She knew he was right. With a resigned sigh, she reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. "This contains everything I have. But if you're smart, you'll destroy it and walk away." Alex took the drive without hesitation. "Thanks for the advice. I'll pass." The trap tightens. Back at the penthouse, Claire examined the contents of the drive while Alex, Ben, and Leela waited anxiously. It contained a treasure trove of documents, bank statements, memos, and encrypted files linking Pierce to multiple illegal operations. "This is it," Claire said, her eyes wide. "This is the nail in Pierce's coffin." But just as the group began to feel a sliver of hope, an alert blared from Claire's laptop. The building's security system had been breached. "Pierce," Alex muttered, his stomach sinking. "He's coming for us." Within minutes, armed men in tactical gear stormed the lower floors. Security personnel held them off as Alex, Claire, and the twins rushed to a secure panic room hidden in the penthouse. The sound of gunfire echoed through the halls, each shot driving home the reality of their peril. Inside the panic room, Ben paced like a caged animal. "We can't just sit here." "We don't have a choice," Alex said, his voice tight. "They're here for me, not you. Stay put, no matter what happens." Leela clung to her brother, her fear barely contained. "What if they find us?" "They won't," Alex assured her, though he wasn't sure he believed it. A desperate move. As the standoff continued, Alex received a call from Pierce himself. The man's voice was calm, almost amused. "Nice try, Alex," Pierce said. "But you're out of your depth. Hand over the evidence, and I'll let the kids go." "You'll never get it," Alex snapped. Pierce chuckled. "Brave words. But let's see how brave you are when the door comes down." The line went dead. Alex turned to Claire. "How much time do we have?" "Not enough," she replied, her face pale. "Then we fight," Alex said. He opened a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a cache of defensive equipment. "Stay with the twins," he told Claire. "I'll handle this." The turning point. As Pierce's men breached the final defenses, Alex faced them with a resolve he hadn't known he possessed. The battle was brutal, But Alex's determination to protect Ben and Leela fueled him. With the help of reinforcements from Marcus and the security team, they'd managed to repel the attackers. When the chaos finally subsided, Alex stood amidst the wreckage of his once pristine penthouse. Ben and Leela emerged from the panic room, their faces a mix of relief and shock. "You did it," Leela whispered, her voice trembling. Alex nodded, exhaustion washing over him. "This isn't over, but it's a start." The reckoning. The following morning, the penthouse stood eerily silent. The aftermath of the attack had left behind shattered glass, overturned furniture, and the lingering scent of smoke. Alex sat in his study, his body aching from the fight, but his mind sharper than ever. Pierce had overplayed his hand. The evidence, Evelyn's files, and Marcus's testimony had formed a damning case, but now it was time to strike back decisively. A plan of exposure. "We go public," Alex said, breaking the tense silence in the room. Claire, Marcus, Ben, and Leela sat around the study, their faces reflecting a mix of exhaustion and determination. "That's suicide," Marcus warned. "Pierce has too many friends in high places. He'll bury this before it even hits the airwaves." "Not if we control the narrative," Claire interjected. She tapped her tablet, pulling up a presentation. "We release everything, evidence, testimonies, financial records, directly to the public. Not through news outlets Pierce can influence, but on every social platform we can access. Once the truth is out there, it'll be too big for him to contain. And when he retaliates," Marcus pressed. "He's already retaliating," Alex said. "We have to hit him where it hurts, his power and his reputation. He can't threaten us if the world is watching." Ben leaned forward, his face set with determination. "Do it. Let everyone know what he did to our parents." The broadcast. Hours later, the team was ready. In a makeshift studio set up in the penthouse, Alex stood in front of a camera. Behind him, a digital display looped images of documents, video testimonies, and the names of Pierce's accomplices. Ben and Leela sat just off camera, their presence a silent reminder of the stakes. Claire counted down, and the broadcast began. "My name is Alexander Stone," Alex said, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. For decades, the Stone Corporation has been synonymous with success and innovation. But beneath that facade lies a history of corruption, exploitation, and violence, a legacy built by my father and perpetuated by his associates. He gestured to the screen behind him as the damning evidence scrolled across it. "Today, I'm exposing the truth. This is Project Horizon, a covert operation used to silence whistleblowers, intimidate families, and erase anyone who threatened the corporation's reputation. These are the names of the people responsible. These are the crimes they committed." Alex's voice grew harder as he spoke. "I will not hide from this truth. I will not protect the men who destroyed innocent lives, including the lives of Ben and Leela Porter, who lost their parents because of my father's actions. Today, I'm dismantling everything tied to this legacy, and I invite the world to hold us accountable." Pierce's counterattack. The broadcast went viral within minutes. Social media platforms exploded with outrage as viewers shared the revelations. Whistleblowers from other companies began coming forward, and activists rallied around the Porter's story. But Alex knew it was only a matter of time before Pierce struck back. True to form, Pierce wasted no time. Within hours, Alex received a chilling phone call. "Impressive speech," Pierce sneered. "But you've made a grave mistake, Alex. You've painted a target on your back. And theirs." Alex's grip on the phone tightened. "You don't scare me, Pierce." "You should be scared," Pierce replied. "Because when I'm done, there won't be anything left of you or your precious empire." The line went dead, but Alex had anticipated this move. Claire had already secured backup servers to store the evidence, ensuring it couldn't be wiped out. Marcus had mobilized additional security for the penthouse, and Alex had discreetly contacted federal authorities with the full scope of the case. The final confrontation. That night, Pierce made his move. Surveillance cameras caught black SUVs pulling up to the building, and armed men began swarming the lobby. But this time, Alex was ready. The penthouse security team engaged the attackers with precision, holding them off long enough for law enforcement to arrive. SWAT teams stormed the building, arresting Pierce's men and securing the premises. Alex, Claire, and the twins watched the chaos unfold from the safety of a secure room. Pierce himself was apprehended moments later, dragged out of his car as he attempted to flee. The sight of him in handcuffs, his smug composure shattered, brought a wave of relief to everyone watching. A new beginning. In the days that followed, the fallout was immense. The Stone Corporation faced lawsuits and investigations, but Alex welcomed them. He sold off the remnants of the company, using the funds to create a foundation dedicated to helping families affected by corporate corruption. Ben and Leela became the faces of the movement, their story inspiring others to come forward. For the first time in years, the twins felt a sense of hope. They enrolled in school, started making friends, and began rebuilding their lives. Alex, too, found a new purpose, one rooted in redemption rather than ambition. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Alex joined Ben and Leela on the balcony of the penthouse. The three of them watched the skyline, their silhouettes framed by the golden light. "Do you think they'd be proud of us?" Leela asked softly. Alex placed a hand on her shoulder. "I think they'd be proud of you both. You're stronger than I ever could have imagined." Ben nodded, his gaze steady. "And we'll make sure they're never forgotten." As the city buzzed below them, the three of them stood united, not just as allies, but as a family. Justice and closure. The morning after. The sun broke through the skyline, bathing the city in warm light as the chaos from the previous night slowly faded. The news of Pierce's arrest dominated every media outlet. Headlines screamed of his crimes, the Project Horizon revelations, and Alex's decision to dismantle his father's empire. In the penthouse, Alex watched the coverage from his living room. The twins were curled up on the couch beside him, their presence a quiet reminder of why he had fought so hard. Leela clutched a blanket, her eyes glued to the screen, while Ben leaned forward, fists clenched, as Pierce's face appeared in handcuffs. "They got him," Ben said, his voice a mixture of relief and lingering anger. "He can't hurt anyone else now." Alex nodded, his exhaustion tempered by a sense of accomplishment. "Not anymore. And soon, the courts will ensure he pays for everything he's done." Claire entered the room, a tablet in hand. "The FBI is reviewing the evidence we sent. They've confirmed that several high-profile arrests are underway, including some of Pierce's closest allies. It's a domino effect, Alex." He exhaled, the tension in his chest loosening for the first time in days. "Good. The more we expose, the less chance there is for this to ever happen again." Confronting the past. Later that day, Alex found himself in a quiet room at the city jail, staring through a glass partition at the man who had nearly destroyed everything. Pierce Everett sat opposite him, his usual polished demeanor replaced by a haggard look of a man cornered. "You've done quite a bit of damage," Pierce said, his voice low and bitter. "You think you've won." "I didn't do this to win," Alex replied evenly. "I did this to right a wrong. Your greed and my father's legacy destroyed innocent lives. I couldn't let it continue." Pierce sneered. "Do you think the world will thank you? They'll turn on you eventually. You've ruined your family's name." Alex leaned forward, his gaze unflinching. "I don't care about the name. I care about the people who were hurt, people like Ben and Leela. And for the first time, I'm proud of what I've done. You should think about that while you rot in prison." Pierce's expression darkened, but Alex didn't wait for a response. He stood and walked out, leaving the man to face the consequences of his actions. Rebuilding lives. In the weeks that followed, life began to take on a new rhythm. The twins enrolled in school, diving into their studies with a vigor that spoke of their desire to move forward. Lila joined an art club, her natural talent shining through in vibrant paintings that filled the penthouse walls. Ben took to science and math, his analytical mind thriving in the structured environment. Alex, too, found himself rebuilding. He partnered with advocacy groups to create scholarships, legal funds, and housing initiatives for families impacted by corporate corruption. The foundation became his life's work, a way to ensure that his family's name would stand for redemption rather than greed. One evening, Alex found the twins in the penthouse living room, sorting through a box of old photographs. Among them was the faded picture that had started everything. The image of two smiling children in front of the orphanage. "Do you want to keep it?" Alex asked, leaning against the doorway. Ben looked up, his expression thoughtful. "It's not just ours anymore. It's yours too." Lila nodded, holding the photo gently. "You're part of our family now. And this, it's all of us." Alex's chest tightened with emotion as he walked over and knelt beside them. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for trusting me." A new beginning. Months later, the foundation hosted its first major event, a fundraiser for displaced families. The venue was filled with laughter and hope as survivors shared their stories, bonded by their resilience and determination to build a brighter future. Alex stood at the podium, Ben and Lila at his side. As he addressed the crowd, his voice was steady, filled with the confidence of a man who had finally found his purpose. "This isn't just about fixing the past," he said. "It's about creating a future where no one has to endure what these families have gone through. Together, we can make that happen." The applause that followed was thunderous, but Alex's gaze was fixed on the twins. They smiled up at him, their eyes shining with pride. For the first time in years, Alex felt whole. The shadows of his father's sins no longer loomed over him. In their place was a light, a family forged through pain, struggle, and ultimately, love. As the event drew to a close, the three of them stepped outside onto the balcony, the city lights twinkling like stars. The past was behind them, but their future stretched out before them, bright and full of promise. "Do you think they'd be proud of us?" Lila asked, her voice soft. "They would be," Alex said, pulling the twins close. "I know they would." Together, they watched the city below, ready to face whatever came next, together.